The Queen Mother was not what we would call frugal, even by royal standards. And apparently the phrase, "oh, mummy," was what you used to hear in the palace when she saw the Queen Mother's expense bills.
Well, Gareth, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to chat with you. And you have this great book coming out in a couple months. Let's have another drink. So why did you decide to write this book all about the Queen Mother?
I think it was because no one had done it. And anytime anytime her name came up, I'd heard lots of funny stories. She had a great sense of humor, good one-liners over the years. And I thought, well, this might be the perfect time to do the book. So the book is it's structured in a way that hopefully you can share the stories over a dinner party or over drinks. That's what she'd want. It's 101 anecdotes, one for each year of the Queen Mother's life. Some of them get a little bit into the grittier parts of her life, like what did she really think of Wallis Simpson? What was her real relationship with Princess Diana like? And others are one-liners that some of her surviving friends told me. So there's hopefully a nice range there.
Love that.
That's so exciting. So there's 101 stories, which I absolutely love that. But which one do you think was most surprising for you to learn?
I think some of the ones that were the sadder ones. So a little bit about her teenage years growing up in the First World War. She was born into a Scottish aristocratic family who turned their home into a military convalescent home. Any viewers who were fans of Downton Abbey in season 2, the family kind of do the same thing there. And reading her letters about just, how depressed she was watching, these young men come back so wounded. And they had a really difficult task, which was to get these men better. But it was like fattening a lamb for the slaughter, because once they were better, they went back to the front. So that was surprising in a sad way. The other things were that she was quite insecure about her appearance. A lot of people say, still say about the Queen Mother's teeth and her weight gain. And she was really aware of this. She was actually really upset when she sort of hit the big time, her big break with the coronation in 1937. And I found an account where she told a friend, it distresses me that those photographs went all over the world and I photographed so horribly. So little things like that. But I suppose a lot of it was, I knew she was funny going into it, but she had a really, really sharp sense of humor. So that was part of the more joyful, surprising bits.
I love that. How would you describe her relationship and dynamic with Queen Elizabeth?
It's funny, the Queen just released some of her old home videos here for the Jubilee, and she narrates it. And the first thing she starts with are these old home movies from the 1920s of her mother sort of mugging for camera. Mm-hmm. And she said that her mother really could make her laugh and make her smile like nobody else could. The Queen did despair at her mother's spending. The Queen Mother was not what we would call frugal, even by royal standards. And apparently the phrase, "oh, mummy," was what you used to hear in the palace when she saw the Queen Mother's expense bills. So very loving, slightly long-suffering.
I can't even wrap my head around how much you would have to spend as a royal to really, cap
right.
out.
How much do you have to spend before the eyebrows get raised?
Right.
So much changed for the Queen Mother after the passing of her husband, because it was very sudden. Her young daughter was thrust into this role. How did their relationship change between Elizabeth the Queen Mother and Queen Elizabeth the Queen?
Great question. I think you're right, actually, to hit in the word sudden. That's a really good way to look at it, because I think, and we all know this, unless you've been very lucky and haven't gone through grief. Grief is a bit like a bomb. It goes off and then there's the after effect. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the after effect can be worse. And she certainly was really, her husband passed away thanks to cancer. And she was shocked initially, but it was a few months later where she suddenly felt lost and confused. And she really, I think, cherished both her daughters, but the Queen was very aware that her grief was being slightly lessened or softened by having so much to do. The Queen was very aware that she had the coronation to prepare for. She'd inherited the country, whereas the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret were sort of left alone to deal with their grief. So actually, it was a very, very painful time for her, both in terms of processing her grief, but also in trying to find a new role for herself. And it was actually Winston Churchill who flew up to Scotland to speak to her when she was, she sort of retreated into this bubble of sorrow. And Winston Churchill went up and said, well, your country still needs you. You're so popular with the people that actually you can still serve Britain and serve the monarchy if you come back and start performing public duties again. So I think the Queen always felt very protective of her mother and her younger sister, Princess Margaret, as well, probably dating from that time, when she became Queen, and they were sort of not left, but they did have to deal with their grief at George's death in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of being protective, it seemed like the Queen Mother was protective over Prince Charles as well. But wasn't she instrumental in convincing him to not leave the royal family? Didn't he want to kind of move to Italy and live a more normal life?
Well, that was one of the things I found out. I heard that from 3 different people, that this was really in the 1990s at the height or depth of tabloid intrusion into his life and Diana's. And I think he was very, very angry, and it was getting to the stage where it had really affected his life, his estranged wife's life, their children's lives. People forget how remorseless media intrusion to them was in the 90s. And he had come up with this idea, allegedly, that he would spend 6 months of the year living in Tuscany in northern Italy. And the Queen Mother, from what I can tell, she never approached a point head on. She liked to duck and weave to get there. What was unsaid was as important as what was said. And she never really spoke about his great uncle, Edward VIII, and Wallis Simpson. That just was very seldom discussed. And what I heard was that when she got wind of Operation Tuscany, let's call it, she under the Tuscan sun, she decided to talk to Charles over dinner about Edward and how she felt one of his big mistakes had been going to live abroad, and had been going to live in France and Austria after he abdicated. And it was very clear what point she was trying to make without specifically saying it. And we don't hear much about Tuscany after that. So that, I think, so she was pretty instrumental. And I think a lot of people have grandmothers who make the point in camouflage.
Yeah, it's very true.
I think a lot of us would also like to run off to Tuscany 6 months out of the year. I mean, I can't blame Charles.
No, I did. I got where he was coming from.
Hey everyone, I'm Christina Garibaldi, the host of Us Weekly Celebrity Coverage. Don't forget to hit subscribe for the latest celebrity news, tips, and video. And for much more content, make sure you head on over to usmagazine.com, the official home of Us Weekly magazine.